Good evening, night, good afternoon, or good morning, wherever you are in the world. You have just watched the mighty Niarco, bred and owned by Senatore Federico Tesio and Marchese Mario Incisa della Rocchetta under the banner of Razza Dormello Giatta, winning the 1938 Grand Prix de Paris at Longchamp in France. I have to say that Niarco, with his progeny, changed completely the world of a modern thoroughbred. You should bear in mind that all over the planet, every day when there are races for thoroughbred, over 90% of them they carry Niarco's blood, which is phenomenal achievement. Today, or better this evening, I have the honor and the pleasure to have on stage a very special person, Nick Smith. Nick Smith is the racing director of Ascot and is a director of the Ascot Authority Holding Limited Company. Welcome to the program, Nick.
Hello, Carlo. Thank you very much. That's quite some introduction. I'm quite touched.
Well, this is the truth. And I was reading this book, which is the program of the Royal Meeting. And I have to say that this program has been created probably how many years ago? Over 100? At least.
It hasn't changed for about 100 years, yeah.
Yes. Anyway, I have to say that the first time I attended the Royal Meeting was 1973 or something like that. I remember that the book was exactly the same.
Well, I don't remember it, Carlo, because I was one.
Yeah, I know. I know that. Anyway, Nick Smith is working, I have to say, in the top racecourse in the world for the simple reason that is the racecourse of the Royals, and then there is the Royal Meeting, which is the most important race meeting by far in the world. Attending the Royal Meeting is like going to to 24 Olympic finals. Is it correct or not, Nick?
Well, it's very kind of you to put it in that context. It's an extremely important meeting. Obviously, it has 8 Group 1 races, and then over half of the program is it's in the pattern. It has definitive 2-year-old races that seem to be attracting more and more runners every year. Everybody wants to have a 2-year-old runner at Royal Ascot. We're lucky, and the time of year presents itself for a very unique structure for the race meeting in terms of it being the final point in the season where the 3-year-olds at the top level compete against each other and the older horses compete against each other before they all go on to meet at Goodwood and York and Sandown and places like that. So look, it's been a privilege to be involved with Ascot for so long and to watch the development in the program. It's only, you go back to 2000, there were only 3 Group 1 races at Royal Ascot. So of course, it was only a 4-day meeting until comparatively recently. So it's strengthened a lot. It's found its place in the global calendar. We're lucky that owners want to come from all around the world. And when you saw Wathnan, went into overdrive with their team and their purchasing team, so they could have 30 horses run under their Qatari banner for the Royal Ascot this year. And we had an Australian winner, smaller contingent than usual, but still had an Australian winner. So it was a great week.
I have here the result of the fiscal year 2023-2024, which were published more or less everywhere. I have seen that Ascot Racecourse has distributed prize money for 17.5 million in the year to the sport in the year 2024. And then I have to say that the profit, 5.9 million, which is a good achievement, I think. But there is a figure which is incredible, because on-course attendance rose to 514,200 2008, and you had, I think, more or less 260,000, 270,000 people for the royal meeting, which is incredible. But I think that show how healthy racing is in the UK, but not only in the UK, because everywhere I go for the major meeting, the race courses are packed. I've been to Newmarket for the July meeting, as I was impressed by the huge number of young people that there were there. So that means that the young generation is interested in racing, they go racing.
Yeah, look, we're lucky in the UK. It is the second highest spectator sport that we have here after football. Attendances haven't been quite where they were before COVID, but that's fine. They're not massively in decline, and obviously Royal Ascot was slightly up on last year, which was fantastic. We're very lucky. We have a varied program in the UK. The racing's world class pretty much wherever you go. There's no stronger pattern races than there are in Britain. You look at the tables, and they're usually, in spite of our prize money differentials with the big superpowers overseas, you'll still see probably 4 or 5 of the top races in the world being run at British tracks. European too, in the case of the likes of Longchamp, obviously, but mainly Britain. So yeah, I think it's in a good place. I think we shouldn't be complacent about where we are. I mean, there's all sorts of competition from outside the sport. We face all sorts of complexities with horses being exported overseas as well. The pool of horses is slowly going the wrong way because of the opportunities elsewhere. But I think sometimes it's better to look at the position of British racing as we are on a success curve. It's probably just that others are on a much steeper success curve, such as the Middle East, maybe Saudi and Dubai's expanding cards, but elsewhere as well, Australia prize money. And their success is probably outweighing our success, and the natural balance of things is probably that we will have to play our part in a wider marketplace than we ever have before, which is fine. It brings on competition and stops apathy, I suppose.
Yes, but for instance, last Sunday I watched racing on TV. For instance, there was Carmel, there was Red Car. I mean, Carmel and Red Car are not Ascot, but I mean, the race courses were packed in an unbelievable way. And as I said before, a lot of young people, which is very, very important in my opinion. Newmarket the last meeting, the July meeting, on a Thursday, on a Saturday, it was quite impossible to move around the course because of people. Anyway, as I said before, you are the director of racing. What does it mean exactly?
Well, there's quite a lot of varied parts that I have to look after. So first and foremost, and the most important thing on any racecourse is the racetrack itself, the racing surface. So Chris Nichols, the clerk of the course here, who's a very experienced, well-respected clerk of the course, he reports to me, but he is the expert, if you like, on the agronomy and the delivery of the grounds to make sure that we get a position where this year, if we manage to have good to firm, safe ground for the entire week with a uniform is a better word, uniform watering each night, just to make sure that ground was produced good to firm, safe and fair flat racing summer ground. And that is
sorry if I interrupt you briefly. That means that the clerk of the course, which is another person, is reporting to you, and together you decide what to do, because the clerk of the course role, I think that is very important for a race course.
Correct. We decide what to do together. I very much take his and our head groundsman, Rion Sanford's advice. My role on watering decisions and such is usually to say, I agree, because you're the experts.
Yes.
I might have heard a trainer make a comment that more watering is required, or I might have heard a owner making a comment that no watering is required. And my job really is to try and balance to Chris and Rion that they have the expertise, the knowledge, and the experience of the track, which no one else has, and they should run their own race and have confidence to do what they think is best for the overall management of the track. If and we do have difficult days, if there are trickier watering decisions or there is pressure from senior horsemen, then it's probably down to me to sort of say, you know, if I have a view on that. But my view is more to inform his view rather than to tell him what to do, because you know, that my role is much wider than the track.
Yes.
You know, I let the experts do what they're expert in.
Then, if I well remember, you are also responsible for a very delicate work, very delicate job, trying to attract as many horses as possible from abroad. And to do that, I know that you, I don't know, at the winter time, you go around the world meeting these people, trainers, owners, try to convince them to come to the royal meeting.
Yeah, that's right. So the big facet of the role is the entire race program. So I'm responsible ultimately for the race program, the development of new races like the Commonwealth Cup with the BHA, obviously, and I sit on the British Flat Pattern Committee so that we can take a holistic view about what race program has to be delivered. In terms of promoting the racing overseas, that's very much part of the role. Although that is equally expanded to members of my team. Chris Nichols went to the Kentucky Derby this year, where we had a winner-in race into the Twin Spires. Didn't come off in the year, but came very close. Other members of my team, Hannah Parlett, who's our owners and trainers manager, and Will Aikenhead, who's our industry affairs head of industry affairs, they travel as well. So we split things around a bit. Myself and Will go to the Asian Racing Conference in Sapporo next month. So the travelling is split, but again, the ultimate responsibility for delivering the race program, any innovations in the race program, changes in the race program, changes in order of running to try and maximise Whirlpool, for example. You know, we've got a huge amount of work on this weekend to make sure the Saturday card is a quality and hopefully numerically strong race day. I don't know if we'll get to 8 runners or 7 runners you need for Whirlpool to be at its best. In the King George we should, but we'll see soon. The entries are coming through as we speak. And promoting internationally has been really exciting. I mean, you know, we've seen, I can't even remember how many it is now, 7 or 8 winners from Australia, 7 or 8 from America. You know, we've had some exciting times with Black Caviar. Obviously, that was a sort of definitive moment in horse racing when it happened. I think Nature Strip recently was a big moment because that relit the Australian interest, which led to Alfora coming this year. So that relit that. Big moments like when Tepin won for America. Who would have thought that an American turf miler could possibly win a Queen Anne? A couple of Hong Kong winners, Cape of Good Hope and Little Bridge. We haven't yet had a Japanese winner. That would be
the ice on the cake.
That's frustrating not having that. That's very much unfinished business.
Anyway, now we have a short break, and we will be back soon. Don't go away. Stay with us. Nick, I want to ask you something. How difficult, how is the relationship with the royal family? Because, the royal family, everybody knows is behind Ascot. So anyway, without the royal family, without no royal meeting, But I remember, because I read a lot of books about the Edwardian era and what used to happen racing. And I remember very well that Queen Victoria, before the royal meeting, used to write a letter to his son, who became the king, and saying, please, this year, don't spend all the 4 days at Ascot, behave yourself, go only 1 or 2 days. And the Prince of Wales used to reply all the time. At the time, I think that he was saying mother or mom or something. I translate not in a very correct way. He say, listen, mom, I am old enough to understand what I have to do. So please let me do what I want to do. So, but anyway, without the royal, of course, no royal meeting. So what kind of relationship the management of the track has with the royal family?
So the track is effectively managed by the trustees of the Ascot Authority, of which Sir Francis Brooke is the senior trustee and His Majesty's representative at Ascot. So he communicates with the King on all serious matters, or interesting matters too, relating to Ascot. So that could be a potential race planning change, that could be a discussion about, you know, arrival times and who's presenting trophies from the royal family at the royal meeting. So there's that dialogue that goes on, and that dialogue was very much in place with the late Queen Elizabeth II, and has been in place at Ascot for the best part of the 300 years of our history. Obviously, the position of her or His Majesty's representative came a little later. But as Royal Ascot sort of manifested itself formally at around about the time of the Gold Cup in about 1807 or something like that, that is when the sort of formal structure, or more a structure by precedent rather than the formal structure, began to come into place in terms of how we at the racecourse interact with the royal family. And it's an incredible operation, because we have to discuss with the police and with the royal family all the sort of the royal procession matters, you know, who's coming in the royal procession, the changeover from the cars in the Great Park to the royal procession, you know, where they're going to be, what guests they might have, whether in the royal box or elsewhere. And it really is a family occasion. I think, you know, during the COVID period and the sad illness of Queen Elizabeth II, we saw a real transition from Queen Elizabeth II, who was an absolute stalwart of the royal meeting, there every single day, apart from when illness prevented her, and was very much the leader of the pack, if you like, with the royal procession. We saw in her absence, you know, when we were allowed to have a small crowd back and arrivals from royal family members, we saw the then Prince of Wales leading one day, now the King, obviously, the Princess Royal, the Prince of Wales, as now, who was the Duke of Cambridge then. All these people came and enjoyed and represented the Queen, the late Queen, at Royal Ascot during her year of being unable to attend. And we then had a sort of seamless transition, really, to the new King and Queen coming last year, where they came on every single day, and they came every day. The Queen came every day this year, and the King 4 days from 5. So, you know, we're very lucky to have them here. They're very much part of the event. The public love to see them. The public and the royal family love to be here. They have their own guests. They have their own horses, of course, which has been tremendous. I mean, watching the King and Queen enjoying success on the racecourse with Desert Hero last year, and learning the rough and the smooth of racehorse ownership. It's a grounding experience for the racecourse, and I think perhaps that's something that they enjoy.
Going back for a while to the financial result, I have seen that Ascot more or less has repaid all the debt the company had, probably due to the building of the new race course. So I think that the management did extremely well to achieve those kind of results.
Yeah, look, I mean, we're very pleased with that. I mean, we worked very, very hard to try and do two things really over the last 10 years. Well, three actually. Survive the pandemic and come out the other side would be a given. But leaving that aside, we've worked on increasing prize money as much as we can to try and stay not just relevant, but absolutely top of the tree in terms of European racing, but also to take responsibility for that significant debt that we took on when we reopened in 2006, which is something like 150 million at one point. Now it's down to, nothing, effectively.
Exactly.
10 million, and which is the kind of manageable debt that you'd expect any business of our size to hold. So we've managed to focus on that. Most years we've managed to make voluntary repayments to the top of the mandatory repayments, and that's a big decision but it is the right thing for the future. It enables us and the next generation of the management of this racecourse to look forward without shackles of the past. They can now begin to focus. Well, it's us now, but us and our successors can focus on what we would like to do with the racecourse going forward, and whether we want to make any changes or any sort of invest in any projects. There's nothing I can give you as a grand headline that we're committed to at all. There are all sorts of things that need to be done, like stuff that is not as glamorous as we'd like we need more water, for example. So we need to expand the reservoirs and things like that, which aren't going to get you many headlines, but they are what we need to do to make sure that the basics of what we do can happen.
I want to ask you the two final questions. The first one, I think that people will love to know, how many people works at Ascot during the royal meeting, roughly?
About 6,000. About 6,000. So
6,000 people working during the royal meeting?
Yeah, including cleaners and waiters, and everybody. 6,000, a day.
So people, watcher, should understand what Ascot is, because they need 6,000 people to work during the royal meeting. And then the final question is this one. Since a couple of years, you are involved with the whirlpool. And I always been a great believer in the commingling of pool betting. I was a consultant for European Association of Pari-Mutuel in the late 90s, at the beginning of the 2000s, and the commingling of pool betting was in his childhood. But now, has developed in a huge way, thanks to Professor Winfried Engelbert-Brecht. I know that the betting turnover at the royal meeting this year, I'm talking about the total whirlpool, was over 144 million pounds, which is a phenomenal figure, which give you, of course, Ascot, a lot of air to breathe with, because the income is quite important.
Yeah, it is important. It's one string of several bows, and one should always be slightly careful when one income stream is going one way, that another income stream or cost is always going the other. I'm afraid that's the nature of the beast, but the whirlpool has been a tremendous sort of complete success on every level. We launched it with the Hong Kong Jockey Club just before the pandemic. It had its birth here at Ascot. It was a success from day one. It delivers a significant amount of money to the host racecourses to enable us to obviously structure our prize money in an appropriate way, and to maintain facilities and what have you, which is very, very important. We consistently top the table of overseas betting events that the Hong Kong Jockey Club select to take. Royal Ascot, with its 5 days of good fields, competitive racing, top class racing, is right in the sweet spot of the Hong Kong audience, and they devour it. It fluctuates from year to year. It's not always on an upward curve, but the curve nevertheless is high. And it's been a revolution, and credit to Winfried and the Hong Kong Jockey Club for getting everybody together to make it happen, because it took strong leadership and strong vision to get that right. Okay,
finally, I wish to tell you something. We have is mandatory. We have to resume our bet. One horse in front of the other for the Group Ones. We will start on Saturday for the King George.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Am I allowed to go first?
No, I mean we will talk on course, and we will have our £5 bet. One horse.
£1.
No, we started with £1, if you
£1.
remember. But now we can. I think that because of the inflation, we can go up to 5.
5. Okay. Wow. Okay. We'll do that then. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Nick, for your time. I
Thanks,
think
Connor.
it was great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Connor. See you on Saturday.
See, all right. Inshallah, like the Arabs say.